So getting back to how do you control, like, how do you control yourself? How you regulate yourself? Like, where to start? What would be some of your advices with like starting to take some action towards regulating this?
Yeah. Well, and it starts with, again, like the awareness stuff that I was talking about earlier, because that's really what's going to help you see this
Yeah.
stuff,
What helps with
really.
awareness to bring or
Right,
raise
right,
awareness?
right. And so, and controlling, God, that's a good, controlling myself. So I guess for me, one of the things I try to do is I try to do the forward thinking. Like when I go to do something, what is the outcome that I want? It sounds manipulative, but it's not. I mean, it
Question,
really,
what to do if you don't know? What is it that you actually want as an outcome? Or you maybe don't have the reference towards a healthy outcome to look towards.
well, even if you don't have a reference, like you don't have the experience yourself of a healthy outcome, there is absolutely nothing wrong. And I've done this in my life of create it. What do you want it to look like? I have literally done that. And that has literally pulled me out of funks. And actually, it has worked where that visual that I was visualizing and it was a big vision came true.
Mm.
So there is absolute, and you don't have to believe it. It's that's not a requirement. And when you first start doing that, that feels super foreign. That feels really weird
Yeah.
and unbelievable, and you'll doubt it. But just create it.
I'm really interested to hear on that piece of you don't have to believe it because I feel like that's a really powerful statement because I feel I can draw a lot of parallels with that sense of motivation. Oh, you need to be motivated to do something. It's like, not necessarily. Um, so
No.
and here it's similar, like you don't have to believe it to act on it. How would that look like? Because I feel a lot of times we have this assumption that for me to act on something I actually have to believe it.
Well, and the thing about the motivation, I want to touch on that, is especially somebody in the beginning of their healing journey or they haven't started it, there is no motivation. You're
Yeah.
exhausted, there is no motivation. So your first steps are going to be really small, and that's okay. That's okay. And so that's why I say you don't have to have motivation. Because if I needed motivation, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I had to
Mm.
create my own. I just had to take the steps. So there's that. And so the question is now is about,
um you don't have to believe to do it.
yeah. And that was a tough one for me because I started out with, oh yeah, that's a bunch of crap, to okay, I'm gonna try it. And the thing is, you're not gonna see this stuff right away.
Yep.
It's gonna take time.
Mhm.
And so
And the
it took
tension.
time for me to finally see that first thing. And then it was like, oh, wow. Okay, I guess this does work. Even though I didn't believe it, it came true. And here's an example, and I used this story in my podcast before. So a couple summers ago, my husband had a really scary health scare, really, really scary. And boy, I want to talk about triggered all over the place. I got triggered big time. And one of the times I was home with the dogs and he was at the hospital, and I just went into the spiral of thinking the worst. Like literally my mind went to the absolute worst. And I was aware of how my body was reacting to it. Oh my God, I was barely breathing. My chest was tight, my neck, my back, everything was tight. I was hurting. I talk about, I want to climb out of my own skin and get away from myself. That was one of the nights because I could not stand the way I felt. It was so not common to me
What
anymore.
was it that you felt? Like what was the feeling?
It was overwhelming fear.
Okay.
Overwhelming
Was it
fear.
like even like being, what is the word? Terror?
Oh, terrorized?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. So it physically, like everything was tight. Like my neck was tight, my back was tight, my chest was tight. I wasn't breathing real well. I was getting a headache. My mouth was dry. My stomach was a mess. I could barely drink water, forget eating. So I had myself completely jacked up. And I realized I, for the first time, need to get myself out of the situation because that is the way I kind of lived my life back in the unhealthy days.
Intense.
That is how I lived. Like when something would go wrong, that's how my life
And
was
we were just talking about it before, how in your pictures you looked more, you literally look tight, like you were uptight
yeah,
all the time.
all the time. And so imagine being uptight all the time and then something happened and something like this happens. It just, it's like it completely consumed me. And I knew like this is like, I knew in my head what was going on and I knew I needed to change it. And so one of the first things I did is I literally have got a really good meditation app. And I thought, I'm going to make myself meditate for 5 minutes, just a short amount of time. And it was hard. It was really hard. It was hard for me to get focused, but it took enough of the edge off that the next thing I realized I needed to do was I needed to stop these crazy, negative, frightening thoughts that I was having. And what I did is I had the ability to start visualizing what I wanted it to look like.
Mm.
And it was tough because my mind was fighting me.
And body.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had got myself down, calmed down just a little bit, just a little bit. So I started thinking about what I wanted this to look like. And I felt myself calming down more. So then I did a 20-minute meditation. So I took a break from the thoughts. I thought, okay, I got myself down, calmed down a little more. So I did a 20-minute meditation. And by the time I came out of that meditation, I was able to jump right into exactly the way I wanted things to look. And my mind like went on and it was awesome. And it was my husband was going to be healthy. Not only was he going to be healthy, he was going to be able to come back and bounce back and all this stuff. And literally to this day, that vision I had that night, he's living it.
Mm.
I'm not saying I had anything to do with it,
Yeah.
right? I definitely put that out there in the universe, right? Because I was saying it. I wasn't just thinking it, I was literally saying it. There's power in words. There's power in words. And so that's a really big example of what I'm saying.